Hi, this is an interview with Dale Seward of Delphi, who is running for mayor in the upcoming primary election. And this is April 7th. And we're in the common office. So, Dale, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for doing this. I realize the debate could not happen, so this is the next best thing, and I appreciate it. It's always good to be able to talk about issues and talk about things leading up to the election. If the citizens don't know, they can't make an educated vote. So I appreciate you doing this.
Thank you. And this is your time. I mean, this is really your time. I can ask you a question, and you can just answer whatever. I mean, you can talk the whole time without me asking a question if you want.
Okay.
Up to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll muddle through.
Muddle through. Okay. So how old are you?
61. I always have to think, my birthday's at the end of the year, so I have to subtract what you would normally think of as far as your age.
And did you grow up here in Delphi, or where did
I
you?
grew up in Carroll County. I've lived here all but 5 years. When I got custody of my sons and we moved to Nashville, we lived down there for 5 years. Never really intended on coming back. In fact, I wanted to keep going south, but my mom took sick and she was in the nursing home, and I always promised her I'd take care of her. And I kept coming up and doing just that while she was in the nursing home, and I looked at everything and I thought, I really made that promise. I'm going to keep that promise, and I worked to get her out of the nursing home and back into her home where she wanted to be. And I took care of her. She was only supposed to live 4 to 6 months. She lived 1.5 years, and I took care of her most all that time until she passed on. So that's not fun work. I respect anybody that does home health care.
So where do you live now? Don't give me a street address. Just you live in Delphi.
I live in Delphi at 222 East Franklin Street.
Or you could give the street
I
address.
don't care. You come knock on my door and ask me a question.
Well, I'm always concerned because this is going to go on the internet, and you know the internet.
No, I've heard of it, yes.
And how long have you lived in Delphi?
I moved here in 81, I believe, and all but those 5 years ever since.
Okay, great. So, why are you running for mayor?
I've looked at the situation. I've served on the city council for 4 years on the last election cycle. I see a lot of things that need improvement. I see a lot of things that if they're not improved, Delphi is not going to be in good shape here in a few years, kind of like the country, as a matter of fact. So, I mean, we've got to get a handle on our spending. We've got to get a handle on a few of the other things that are going on, and we need better leadership. And I believe that I fill that gap. I've studied leadership. I read a lot, and I've read dozens of books on leadership, mentoring, business management. I've been a businessman pretty much my entire adult life, and I see things that I know can be better. I see things that I know are not good and in a bad culture, and I want to make things better. I want to help people. I have a heart for the city, and I want to make things better.
Okay, so you mentioned you see things that need to be improved, and you mentioned finances.
Yes.
What are some of the other things?
Services, city services need to be improved. Again, helping people. We've already went through a rough time these last handful of years, and it doesn't seem like it's getting any better. And I think we have to be prepared for things, not only in the current situation, but I think we need to be prepared for the things coming at us. And I don't, I don't want to be apocalyptic, but things are not good and things don't seem to be getting better. And I think we need to be prepared for that and help our citizens.
So in what ways are things that that the city needs to prepare for from your crystal ball?
Crystal ball.
I just wanted to work that crystal ball thing in there, yeah.
It runs on a 9-volt battery.
Yeah.
I think we need.
What's it coming? What do you think's coming?
Well, I think, there's we've got information coming in, and you never know.
That's right.
I mean, you never know, but why not be prepared? Our food supply is not secured. We've had a lot of fires nationwide of this, that, and the other. So far, we haven't had too many food shortages, but we have had, due to what they say is supply chain issues and everything like that. And that's what's led me to look at the assets of the city of Delphi and seeing the fact that we've got a lot of land. The city owns a lot of land. And I knew that when I sat on the city council 4 years ago. And I was an advocate on, let's get rid of some of this land, this excess land. The city of Delphi does not need to be in the real estate business.
Mm-hmm.
Now I look at it a little differently. Now with the circumstances nationwide changing to this, that, and the other, I look at that land and I say, what a perfect opportunity to take some of that and make community gardens out of it. We can take land that is in different places in the city, and we can develop those into community gardens. And it's nice because if they're in different parts of the city, you can attract different pockets of people to utilize them. So that's one of the first things that comes to mind when we're talking about stuff like that. I'd like to put in community gardens and develop those. I'd like to also, I will implement rain barrels, a rain barrel system, so citizens can have water to be able to water their flowers, water their gardens, whatever, and cut down on their expense of a water bill.
Mm-hmm.
So those are two things right up front that I am very much in favor of.
What do you think of that water bill?
Pretty darn high. Pretty darn high. I went out, I just got mine today. It got mismailed. And I haven't looked at it yet, but the one last month doubled.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know whether that's on my end or their end or this new water rate raise or whatever. But
so as mayor, what would you do?
What's that?
But as mayor, what would you do about that?
Well, I think we need to also, in addition to community gardens and things like that to help the citizens, I think we need to look at some of these other things. We have money coming in, riverboat. I can't remember what the other one's name. We have several funds or a few funds that come in that are not really earmarked for anything in particular.
Mm-hmm.
Not like money coming in that we have to earmark towards street department and things like that. Mm-hmm. Those things, I mean, the city pays $130,000 a year for trash pickup, which is then reimbursed and paid for by the citizens. We just had a tax increase of that, and I call it a tax increase because we went from $10 a month to $13 a month
mm-hmm.
for our trash pickup. That to me is a tax increase. The city has ample funds in different areas to where they could assist with that. In fact, that was brought up at a few of these city council meetings where the rate was mentioned
mm-hmm.
to be raised. And it was denied. Most of the city councilmen said, no, we're not interested in giving relief to the citizens.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to charge them, and there you go. Well, that's an additional tax in my mind. And,
Well, and these are ratepayers.
Yes.
That pay for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And, we're already in the 95 percentile of the highest rated and billed tax cities in the state of Indiana. 95% highest. We're already paying an immense amount of taxes. Where is that going? Do you have better sidewalks? Do you have better curbs? Do you have, what do you have? During the last election, I went to and talked to one of the leading economic guys at Purdue prior to the election. And I said, can we lower taxes? Can we make it better for our citizens? He says, you can absolutely do that, but very few of them will see relief because of the state tax cap. The money you deny or don't want or reduce will not go back into the citizens' pockets. It'll go in, the school will take it, and it'll go for the school. Well, you know, school needs money, I'll agree with that, but, you know, he came up with the best advice he could give, and that was, do something for your citizens' money. Make better sidewalks, make better curbs. Good Lord, let's fill some potholes. We've got potholes all over town that are just terrible. You go down Union Street, you got to zig and zag all the way down North Union Street. We're not filling potholes, for God's sakes. So, to me, we need to have better services for our citizens. And, you know, you find a way, you find some money. We're $15 million plus in debt with water bonds. $15 million in debt. In the last city council meeting I went to, all that was discussed was, well, $1.4 million to build a new garage out in the county, $1 million for this trail, $900,000 for that trail. Goodness sakes, when's it end? Do you run your house like that? Because I don't. I mean, I have a budget, I spend what I earn, and no more. I don't have the luxury of having more money coming in from nothing. And I think that we've got a poor approach to this.
So, you disagree with the current administration about the finances.
Certainly.
About what else?
Well, let's start at the basics. We're not communicating with our citizens. We absolutely, you know, during the last mayoral appointment, if that's what you want to call it, when Mayor Evans resigned, one of the things I brought up, one of the first things I would do is implement and put on a contract with an emergency contact service. And we have that, and you know, like a month later, the city implemented that. Good to see. It's glad to see one of my ideas come to fruition. However, we're never notified. We're never notified about anything. We've had wrecks, we've had train blockages, we've had this street closed and that street closed. Some of it gets to us, some of it doesn't. What I've seen is there's kind of a pattern where if it's after hours, there's no alerts coming out.
So what would you do about that?
I would implement a policy. I've studied it quite a bit, and implement a policy where people after hours could be in charge of that and be able to put those notifications out there to alert people. We have I've taken a lot of complaints where people say, well, I came to work today and couldn't get to my office because my road's closed. And they knew nothing about it. It was closed for 3 days after that. And, you know, confusion fosters control. And when you don't notify your citizens, when you don't talk to them and treat them with enough respect to tell them what's going on in their own backyard, that constitutes control. And, you know, I don't want to control anybody. I want the city to flow. I want everybody to, you know, get in a good position and go forward.
And do you think that's the kind of situation that exists right now in Delphi?
Yes, either on purpose or accidentally. That's what's happening. And you know,
how can it be accidental if you're the mayor? I mean, as the mayor, would you let go of something like that?
No.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But you know, I'm not here to judge someone's intentions. But that's the unintended consequence if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt.
How transparent do you believe the current administration is, and how would you make it different if you plan to?
Well, ethics and honesty inspire transparency. Ethics and honesty inspires transparency. And You know, that's a very good saying. I'm not at all impressed with the transparency. I think it's an overused word. I've sat and watched the last 4 elections, and oh, I'm going to be the most transparent mayor this city's ever seen, and we can get in there, and it's like, what's going on? And it's, you know, there needs to be stuff developed for that.
Stuff developed. What do you mean?
There needs to be policies. There needs to be procedures. Here's what I would do. Number one, I would work with the clerk treasurer, and I would also put someone in charge of the city's website that has the ability to change it every day. Every public document that comes in needs to be uploaded onto that computer. And the citizens are paying tax money. They pay, like I said, a lot of tax money. They deserve to know what's going on in their town. They deserve to know what's going on in their city. And when you aren't making it available to them in whatever form and fashion, that's depriving them of the value of their tax money. I would also like to put together a 3-man board to fight potential corruption. Do we have corruption in Delphi? We may or may not. I don't have enough information at this point, but there's a lot of people that think we do. We may not. I don't know. But there's 2 kinds of corruption. There's political corruption and there's criminal corruption. And there's a lot of political corruption everywhere. Does it rise to the level of criminal? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not. Who knows? I don't have enough information. But what I'd like to do is I would like to have a 3-person board and have them be able to take and field complaints on anything that the citizens feel is corrupt or messed up or wrong or whatever. Have them investigate it. If it's criminal corruption, have it forwarded to the prosecutor. If it's civil corruption, then it needs to be corrected in-house and made better.
And who would be doing that? Would that go to the city council?
Well, you know, it's in the first thought process. I don't have it all hammered out. I just have the concept for getting it started. It would depend on what the political corruption is. Does it deal with an employee? That goes in one direction. Does it deal with an office? That may be going in another. You know, but you have to respect the fact that every city council member is an elected official. The clerk treasurer is an elected official. We can't sit there and I don't care how many ethics policies you want to put forth. You can only tell each of those elected officials so much about what they can do and what they can't do. You can't blanket control them like's been tried to the last year or so. You can't do that.
Well, does the mayor control the city council?
Not legally.
Right.
But
according to statute.
According to statute, no. They're
a separate
on a level playing ground.
And do you believe that the mayor and the city council is the checks and balances for the mayor?
Absolutely should be.
Is that happening?
No. When you've got, and I've blogged about this on my website. I mean, you've got you've basically got a pocket board, and what I mean by that is you've got a city council board and especially a board of works that anything that the mayor presents, seemingly, they instantly vote yes on. I mean, one of my opponents, when he sat on the board of works, he sat on there for 28 months. And I want to get this right, so I don't normally look at my notes.
No, that's right. Go ahead, refer. Go ahead, refer.
28 months. And during those 28 months, keep in mind, the city budget for 2023 is $3.1 million, give or take. The 28 months that he sat on the Board of Works, he approved, with yes votes, $26 million plus, with a budget of $3.1 million. And I would caution you, it's not where the money comes from, it's where the money goes. And, you know, because how do you spend $12 million plus in 2021 on a $3.1 million budget.
Mhm.
Well, there's grants coming in, there's different kinds of money coming in from here and there, and that's how you get to that amount. But at no time did my opponent ever vote no. He voted with her those 28 months. He voted with the mayor 287 times, abstained 3 times, and from what I've seen, never voted no.
So do you think that, oh, I did. I can't work the door.
I didn't even see,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Can we do this in 30 minutes? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be done.
Wish we had some good music to
In
play.
30 minutes? Oh, in 30 minutes, I thought you meant.
No, I got a little stuff on my times.
Yeah, I think you did.
That's me.
All right, I've got a couple things I have to
Okay,
do. I'll
okay,
just go do that.
okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. I did. I told her wrong.
Yeah, small town.
I kept, well, no, I kept getting mixed up on my turn. So, so do you believe, it sounds like you're believing that, if your opponent, and that's Mr. Yates, is elected, it's gonna be the same as what is happening now, or how do you think that, are you afraid of, I mean, what are you really saying here?
I'm worried about that. I like Cameron, and Cameron and I have always gotten along, but you know, when you go around and you campaign on, well, I didn't always agree with the mayor, I have different ideas and everything like that, but yet you voted with her constantly, 287 times. You can't say you didn't agree with it. You had plenty of time to say no. I remember when I first took my seat on the city council back in 16, I think it was. We were meeting and everything like that, and there were some issues that I didn't agree with, and I voted no. Sidewalk shoveling and different things like that, and I voted no, and I kind of looked from side to side, and the other council members were looking at me like going, "You voted no?" But it was the right thing to do for who I represented. I represented the citizens. I will represent the citizens, and those are my constituents. When you're not having conversations with the constituents, either in your area or in the city or whatever, you're not doing your job. It's not. They didn't elect you to go up there and put your will into the bucket. They elected you to represent them. To listen to what their will is, to what they want to do, and then put that vote into the bucket.
So,
And I don't think our current council realizes that.
I had a thought right then, and it was a really good one too.
I have a lot of those.
So, you said earlier something about checking with the clerk, working with the clerk as far as transparency. And then you said that she's an elected official, and so how would you do that?
I probably jumped ahead.
Oh, okay.
I do that a lot too.
Because in the past, you know, the clerk hasn't, not necessarily this one, but it has happened that the clerk doesn't agree with and get along with either the mayor or the city council.
That happens.
How do you deal with that?
Well, you have to understand that unlike some of the former mayors, you don't have a responsibility and a commitment to run that office as mayor. You have mayor stuff and everything else to do with your office. That person runs their office.
And what is the mayor's stuff? What are the mayor's duties? Do you reckon?
Well, you got to understand that there's to finish that.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. There are different things that overlap with the two offices. But for the mayor to go in and be at a computer in the clerk's office and start doing things that are clerk related is improper.
Has that happened?
It's happened in a term or two ago, yes. You can't have, and on the same token, clerk, whoever that is, should not be coming into the mayor's office and doing mayoral duties
Mhm.
either. But you do have to work together. And you do have to, what I meant by that comment that you just asked about was that that the mayor needs to work with the clerk and obtain public documents from them to be able to upload onto the website. The
Well-
website is outdated. There's stuff on there from 3, 4, 5 years ago. Maybe not that long, but there's stuff up there it's outdated.
But public documents are public documents.
Yes.
I mean, public to everyone.
Yes.
And do you think that there is a little problem with that in City Hall right now?
I'm not impressed with what they're doing. No, I just don't think there's some public documents up there. There's minutes, but sometimes they're 3 and 4 minutes or 3 or 4 months late being put up there and stuff like that. I think we ought to have a concentrated effort to make sure that stuff is on time, put up, and any other avenue that the citizen needs to be able to access that information should be implemented.
The current mayor has a policy, has instituted a policy in the city council, or the city building, that there are no electronic listening devices nor cameras inside the building. Didn't know about that?
I saw a sign, but I didn't know it was still going.
Well, I don't know that it's still going right now, but would that be something that you would think should be happening, or what?
If that sign is up, that sign will come down within 24 hours of me taking office.
I take that as a no then, yeah.
And here's why. Just as the White House is the people's house of the country, the city building is the people's house of the city. The people need to feel comfortable coming in. People need to be encouraged to come in. They should, what's the administration scared of? What is the problem? Now, I will say that there have been threats and conversation and everything like that about people coming in and recording in some of the county offices, and especially at election time, people coming in and videotaping this and videotaping that. There's a limit to that. And while it's good to have it to where the citizens can get in there and have access to their elected officials, have access to their house and everything like that, if it becomes a situation where there is a disturbance being created and you can't do your job and the city building can't function the way it should, then maybe there's some guidelines there that need to be implemented to keep that from happening. But in a general sense, I don't think that's right.
Well, I mean, I believe that there was a recording, and I believe that the person who recorded it did not believe that things were happening the way they should. So, where do you fall on that one? That was in a specific office, and as I think, and then now that's out loud. So there's no record of the exchange.
What are you scared of? If you're doing your job as a city elected official, or somebody in a department under an elected official or a department head or whatever, what are you afraid of? What are you scared of? Do your job, do it right, have the people's heart, in mind, and treat people well, and go about your business.
So, you mentioned this 3-person board that you thought you might get going to address possible corruption. The mayor appoints the Board of Works members.
Yes.
And that's a hand-picked
Yes,
board
it is.
that gets paid. And how would you handle the Board of Works? I mean, would you continue in this way, or would you put somebody on there that maybe doesn't agree with you
Oh, God, I hope so.
all the time?
I hope so. Good ideas come from disagreements. I don't have the second one, the second slot in my mind filled, but I do have the first slot. And I'm not gonna mention any names.
No, you should not do that.
I'm not gonna, go any further than tell you that this person is someone who is, has a whale of a financial, background. And that's what you want on the Board of Works. You wanna have someone that can look at the budget that is agreed upon from the city council, and you wanna have them look at that and say, oh, this isn't right, or this doesn't, you shouldn't do this, or whatever. Lord knows you get a yes board or a pocket board or something that always agrees with you, you're not going anywhere. Your ideas aren't going anywhere. You need disagreements. You don't need fights, but you need disagreements and things like that to promote and get new ideas coming in.
The Board of Works doesn't have anything to do with the budget development.
Correct.
So why are they looking at the budget?
Well, they're the ones that spend the money.
Yeah. So you
So-
think they should be looking at the budget before they spend the money?
I would, yeah, of course. I mean, how can you spend money if you don't know you have money? And this is what we did last year, and we've done it for years upon years. We come in at the 11th hour, at the end of December, at the end of the year, and we say, and we've got to have additional appropriations to do, our budget. And I was the only one from the community, the only citizen that went to that last year. And I sat through it 4 years on the city council, but I wanted to make sure I knew what I was listening to. So I asked a question. I said, why are we doing this? I can't remember from when I served on the city council why we are doing this. And Leanne said that, well, we're doing this to bring these line items, and they were listed, including $180,000 more for trails. We're doing this because these line items are in the red, and we need to have this additional appropriation to bring each and every one of these line items into the black.
And would that be additional appropriations from the general fund?
I don't know where it came from.
Okay.
I but I assume probably, but I don't know. But you're running hundreds of thousands of dollars and everything else into that to make. Why are they red in the first place? You run your own checkbook that way? I don't. I mean, I'm not the best bookkeeper in the world, but I know if I got money or not before I spend it. I don't go spend money and then come home and say, oh my, that's in the red. I better find some other way to, get that in the black. I make mistakes, but not like that. I don't think that's the way you ought to run your government.
So what kind of a Board of Works would you have?
I want a Board of Works that, especially with this financial guy, I want a Board of Works that, again, does not sit there and just arbitrarily say yes to anything and everything I put forth.
Would you expect would you expect your Board of Works to be looking at the claims?
Yes, that's their
And not
job.
just the list?
Yeah.
But the actual claims?
Well, in the 28 months that I looked at that $26 million being spent, most of the time the claims were presented, and I don't understand this. Maybe this is the right way to do it, but I don't agree with this. Here's the claims. The next item is the claims. Do I have a motion to approve the claims? I make a motion. I second. Well, is there any discussion? To me, you ought to have that discussion before you commit yourself to making the proposal to accept them. I don't understand that process. And they absolutely should be looking at that.
Well, I think the logic in that is you don't discuss it until there's a motion and a second to approve.
Could be.
I think because the council does that, the county council does that.
Yeah.
And many times the person they just make a motion to get the discussion going.
I think you ought to have the discussion before the motion, quite frankly, unless that's some big faux pas on the procedures. I don't agree with that, because there you go, you got people locked in. Then they feel like some people don't know that, well, if I made the motion, I can vote no. Or if I made the second, I can vote no. They think they've got to vote yes. And You know, the old adage of every meeting, do I have a motion to approve this? Well, you know what? You can have a motion to disapprove it. You can have no motion.
Mhm.
But everything that comes up, the mayor looks at him and say, do I have a motion to approve? You're kind of leading your people into voting yes every time,
Mhm.
which I don't imagine she disapproves of.
So, on your Board of Works,
Yes.
because Board of Works people, those members approve site plans
Mhm.
for things. Would you have someone who doesn't know anything about that sitting on your Board of Works? Or if you did have someone, how would you handle that? Drainage plan, I mean, all those types of intricate things.
Well, those don't come up very often, but I would encourage them. I would encourage the members of the Board of Works, and especially, you know what the agenda is going to be, and this old stuff of, well, we got to do it right now. We got to do it right now. You preclude your people from actually being able to study the topics and the issues. To me, you get that information to them, and you make available to them who they might check with to make an intelligent decision. And, there's going to be times where some of them don't know what those things are. So, you've got to educate yourself. The biggest problem right now with the city council is, and I almost think that it wasn't offered to them, but when I took my seat in 2016, we went to candidate school down at Indiana Cities and Towns in Indianapolis. It was 2 or 3 days. And I don't believe it was even offered to these, the 5 on the city council. And you go to that school, and you have an option of what all you want to go to school about and see the classes. Some of them are budgets, some of them are water related, wastewater related, street, whatever. You choose what you want to go to. But I will make and find funding to send any and all city council members to school so they can learn what their job is before they actually, get going, and so they'll understand. There's a learning curve there, and you don't want to have the first 1.5 to 2 years of a new council trying to figure out, well, what are we doing? What is this? You want to educate them so they can hit the ground running.
So you were at the last meeting, Monday.
Yes.
That was just this Monday. And you heard one of your opponents express significant concern about the amount of money that was maybe going to be approved at that meeting. And did you get any paperwork from her?
Oh, I probably did, yeah.
Okay. How would you handle something like that as the mayor?
Well, at the beginning of my administration, I'm not going to get into to the weeds with that type of situation, where we're spending that god-awful amount of money. Because early in my administration, I'm going to access the budget. The clerk's going to have the budget. I'm going to have the budget. My Board of Works will have the budget from last year. Don't get me wrong, from last year. And we're going to look at that, and we're going to sit there and say, where can we cut spending? Where are overlaps? Where are duplicate spending? Where is spending that doesn't benefit the city as a whole, and how can we reduce it? And we're going to go over that budget with a fine-tooth comb. We're going to make it better.
Well, if your opponent is correct about her predictions, and you win the election, the general election, you will be inheriting
a problem,
a real problem. How are you going to deal with that? I mean, let's just say, 3/4 of that is correct, and, we heard about deficit in the general fund of over $300,000, and, how would you deal with that?
Well, I don't play poker, but I know that you can only play with the hand you're dealt.
Yeah.
And, we have no agenda for prosperity in this city. We have no agenda for prosperity, and that needs to change, and we need to be open for business, and we need to have that agenda. And you can't do anything but with, I mean, you can't, unlike some of the other people, you can't go out back and pluck money off the money tree. You're gonna have to deal with what you've got.
So let's say you don't have any in the general fund. Let's say they all get to budget time this year, you know, and they're really not having much money, and if you were on that, would you vote to borrow money for operations?
No.
What would you do?
And I wouldn't raise taxes either.
You can't.
So, well, I wouldn't.
What would you do?
Well, you're gonna have to live within your means.
And how would you do that?
Well, you don't spend more than you have, and you don't come back in December and have a special appropriations for thousands upon thousands of dollars to turn certain red line items into black line items.
Well, if her predictions are anywhere near, you're not going to have any to do that.
You're gonna have to deal with it.
And how would you deal with it?
Well, you can't overspend your means.
And what practical steps would you take?
You're probably gonna have to cut some budgets. And you're probably gonna have to, take out and say, look, we can't do this. We can't do this right now. We may not be able to do it ever because of the mismanagement of the funding prior to this administration. But you gotta live within your means. Grandma Mary down here on North Indiana Street has to live within her means. Susie over here in the trailer park has to live within her means. They get a government check at the first of the year, Social Security or whatever it is, and whatever else money they cut. They have to make tough decisions. How am I going to live? How am I going to spend this? The government may have to make tough decisions because of the irresponsible spending from the prior administration.
So, what would you do with the police department? Do you believe that Delphi needs 9 officers? Do you believe that every officer should have a take-home car? Tell me a little bit about that.
I don't know enough at this stage to say whether we need 9 officers or not. I would have to look at the productivity. I would have to look at the court cases. I would have to listen to the people and what they desire. As far as the take-home cars, like I said, I've been a businessman pretty much all my adult life. I'd hate to think that I was looking at the fact that there's 6 additional cars needed at $64,000 a piece, whatever that totals. But let's just look, $64,000 a person. I'd hate to think that I couldn't take $64,000 a man and take half of that and do something else with it to incentivize them to come here. I don't think that a take-home car is the answer, in other words. I think that you can take half of that money, or a third of that money, or 2/3 of that money, and spend it on something for those new officers that would make it even more appealing to come here.
And how do you feel about body cams,
Gotta have them.
dash cams?
Gotta have them.
That.
There's no quarrel with that. You gotta have them. This is so
But you
much.
don't have them.
So much. Well, I don't doubt it. Like I said before, this is bad leadership. There's so much litigation in the United States right now. Anybody can sue anybody. And that's a God-given or a state-given right. Don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of frivolity to it. A lot of frivolous lawsuits.
Well, and the city of Delphi has those.
Yes, they do. They do.
What might be going on right now?
Yeah, doesn't surprise me.
So,
Bad leadership.
tell me what you think about the open door law. I always hit the open door law.
I saw it coming in my crystal ball.
I thought.
The open door law is a law. Therefore, we